Hey Internet! My name's Amala, and this is Who Let Me Be an Adult, an advice show for anybody who realizes that growing up is just a myth. So it's been a really insane week for me, both professionally and personally. So I'm talking about a topic today that I don't need a lot of prompting to start ranting about, and that's voting. Are you a US citizen over 18 years of age? Then get your ass to vote.usa.gov and register to vote. Register to vote yesterday. Do it right now. And then vote every time you're able to. Like, not just during presidential years. It's especially important to get out to vote during those weird times and months that seem like they're chosen at random. Because that's when the things that really affect you get decided. Like in Michigan this week, we're voting on things in various county elections that decide everything from whether to fund libraries to who the county prosecutor is. And guess who decides if people get charged when someone shoots an unarmed black kid? It's the prosecutor. And you know, in a lot of places in this country, you can have a direct say in who that is. It just doesn't show up all the time on presidential election ballots. So you've got to get out and vote, even if it's like, you know, a random Tuesday in August. Were you a Bernie Sanders supporter? Great! I was too! But, you know, realistically, the things that Bernie was talking about, the, universal health care, free college, those things weren't likely to pass, given our current state and federal Congresses. So if you want to make it possible for somebody like Bernie to enact those policies in the future, like, we have to build that from the ground up. You have to turn out to vote in your state and local elections. You know, you have to turn out and vote in the congressional election years. You know, if you're not happy with who's running, you know, locally for you, go to the primaries. You know, or take Bernie's advice and run for office yourself. This is kind of turning into a rant, but please, go vote. Go vote as often as you can. Now, if you're wondering why so many really important decisions are decided when people are statistically the least likely to turn out to vote, and why voting is so difficult, more on that later, even during a presidential election year. I mean, no tinfoil hat here, but, you know, Republicans have a vested interest in making sure that young people, minorities, and the poor don't turn out to vote. And they're often, because, again, nobody really shows up for non-presidential years, they're the people that are often in charge of these things. Like, just look at the voter ID laws that were thankfully recently struck down in Texas and North Carolina. Like, look into how they're trying and often succeeding in closing polling places in college towns, minority neighborhoods, you know, wherever they are statistically likely to lose. They're making it more difficult to vote. You know, and they're making it hard to vote so that things won't change. So vote. Bring friends. Make a plan. Go vote. You know, I don't even care who you vote for, as long as it's like you're voting with your sincere voice. Just, you know, please don't make it be Trump. And, you know, think long and hard about the Supreme Court before you protest right in somebody. Remember what I said about the importance of state and local elections. Like, if we want to enact radical changes, we have to do that with a coalition built from the ground up. You know, we have to stay active and engaged, even when it's not a presidential year. But the kind of change we want is going to be a billion times harder if Trump is president and he picks, like, the next 2 or 3 Supreme Court justices. Okay. Now that I've hopefully convinced you to go vote, how do you go about doing it? So, like I said earlier, if you are a U.S. citizen over the age of 18, go to vote.usa.gov to register. Be sure to do it early. A lot of places, like in Michigan, you have to vote almost a full month before the actual election day. And then you're going to get a little voter ID card in the mail, and it'll say where your polling place is. Map it out. Be sure you know where it is, how you're going to get there. You know, is it accessible by public transport? Remember what I said about how they're trying to make it as difficult as possible for people to get out and vote? You know, closing down polling places in college towns and whatnot? Again, make a plan. Figure out where it is, how you're going to get there, how you're going to get home, how you're going to get to work or school or whatever. Figure that shit out. figure out if it's going to be easier for you to go before work, early in the morning, right when they open, when the lines are going to be the shortest, or, if you're going to be stuck there after work or after school, and there's going to be crazy long lines, like bring a snack, bring some water, be aware there's not going to be bathrooms, bring a backup battery for your phone if it's going to be if you're in a very populated area and the lines are going to be that bad, and they might be. Print out a sample ballot in advance. They've got all the candidates, all the issues that are going to be on the ballot. Print it out, fill it out, do your research, think about it, and then when you actually get to the point where you're voting, it'll take 2 seconds because all you have to do is copy down your answers from the sample ballot. One thing to note is that, as long as you're in line to vote before the polling place closes, you can vote. Even if the lines are snaking around the building and it's 8 o'clock and the place is going to close, but you're in line to vote, they're going to cut off that line. So people who show up after 8 can't vote, but if you're in line, you can vote. If they don't let you, no joke, tweet about it like crazy, call the media, raise a non-violent stink, You have to vote. Now, if you are going to be out of town, for whatever reason, you're sick, you can't leave the house, you can vote absentee. The problem with voting absentee is you have to apply for an absentee ballot in advance, and a lot of states don't let you do no reason absentee. But if you've got a reason, honestly, it's easier. Just, when you get your absentee ballot, the one time I got mine, I could just fill it out in the city clerk's office, put it in an envelope, and hand it back to them. I didn't even have to mail it in. I could just fill it out that day. Just make sure you get it in before the election day. It's more likely to count that way. And most important, especially when you're voting in person, bring your voter ID card and a government-issued photo ID if you have one. Technically, at least in Michigan, you don't have to have a government-issued photo ID to vote as long as you have your voter ID card, but they will raise a huge stink, get really pissy about it, and find any reason they can to invalidate your ballot. Things like your signature not matching perfectly between your voter ID card and your little affidavit stating you are who you say you are. They'll find a reason to throw it out. Like I said, the people currently in charge have a vested interest in making it as difficult as possible for you to vote and for your vote to count. So, go vote. So, that's it for this week. See you guys next time. Good luck adulting. You got this.